All right, welcome everyone. Today is Wednesday, the 26th of March, 2025, and this is the Cluster API office hours. Cluster API is a sub-project of Kubernetes SIGs, and as such, we follow their meeting guidelines, which can basically be summarized as please treat everyone as you would expect to be treated, or explicitly so, please be kind to each other. And if you'd like to talk, please raise your hand and I will call on you. So at the beginning of our meetings, we like to make some time for new attendees who'd like to introduce themselves to the community. So if that sounds like you, please either unmute yourself or raise your hand and say hi to everybody.
I don't know how to raise my hand in this application, but maybe it looks like me, Michael, as I don't know any other the people that are here. Hello, everybody. I'm Alessandro. I work at Red Hat, and I know Michael from a while now. I have been following some of the works in the cluster autoscaler and now in the cluster API project, especially for the aspects regarding the multi-architecture Kubernetes cases. Nice to meet you all.
Awesome. Thank you, Alessandro. Nice to see you here as well. All right. So I'm not seeing anyone else unmuting. So we'll move on in 3, 2, all right, 1. Let's check out the open proposal readouts. I'm not sure what we got here. So the in-place updates proposal, and I think Alessandro has just added the update for auto scaling from 0 enhancement. So do we have anyone to talk about the in-place updates proposal? Or anyone who'd like to give an update? Just give a look at the agenda here. All right, I guess no updates for the in-place proposal. Fabrizio, did you want to?
Yes, just a reminder that we have a lazy consensus set for some time right after KubeCon. So please take a look. Some comments are flowing in. And yeah, I think there are no big point open, just needs to be addressed. But if you are interested, take a look. We are the plan is to merge these 1 or 2 weeks after KubeCon.
Okay, and that looks like a good read too. So, for folks who are looking for some light nighttime reading, or perhaps you need to fill a long plane trip to KubeCon, this is a good review to go through because there's lots of comments and stuff to read. So happy for anyone to take a look at this. Thank you, Fabrizio. Okay, I guess Alessandro, since you just introduced yourself, did you want to give something about this update auto scaling from 0 enhancement?
It is an update for the enhancement proposal regarding the autoscale from 0 with cluster API. There is some work that has been done in the past in the cluster autoscaler, in particular for allowing architecture-aware autoscale from 0. And in the cluster API side, we already know that the users can use the capacity annotation label in order to set up the possible architecture that a given node group can have on the cluster autoscaler side. But we were also looking at the status reconciler that you want to implement for the machine instance templates when cluster API providers will provide such information for the capacity like CPU and memory or GPU. And we wonder whether we can enable a similar support for the fields regarding the architecture and the operating system, possibly. I open this proposal and related issue. There is a concern by Christian regarding one of the choices that I was proposing. In particular, in the status field, I introduced another field using a type that is also from the core V1 APIs. But this type has some fields that are pretty needless and that are not omit empty. So Christian was concerned about these fields staying in the object and visible to the users, essentially. And the other option is, we were discussing about the alternatives. I see two main alternatives, which are having a dedicated struct with only the fields that are really needed by the cluster API tooling, or adding a field that can be used to trace the same capacity annotation level that we can set in the annotations field, but that has no equivalent for the status field yet. In my opinion, all of them have advantages and disadvantages. So what I want more to ask is, to you guys, what do you think about them? Whether to use a core V1 a type that is available in the core V1 API, which is having some more fields on one side, but allowing developers to use the core V1 APIs as they are already doing for the capacity in the status field, or going for a dedicated struct that we can maybe onboard in the cluster API repository and then let the users import in their controllers, or three, using the capacity annotation level and maybe finding a place for it in the status field as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Alessandro. Stefan has a question, I think. Please, Stefan.
I have to take a look at the PR just to say more. But I have one opinion about embedding the core V1 struct. We have made very, very bad experiences with just embedding structs from V1, basically, because a lot of them had like a lot of fields that never made any sense in our APIs. And now we have those fields, and people sort of expect that if they're setting those fields, they make any sense at all, but they don't. One good example is object reference, which has like, I think 6 fields, and we usually use 3 of them, like name, kind, API version, namespace. You can only set it to the same namespace as the cluster, and stuff like field path just doesn't make any sense. So what I would recommend is, so I have to take a look at the PR in general, but if we go down the road where we will have a struct in our API, I would recommend to basically add our version of node info, whatever the name of that is, and only add the fields that we think make sense and expand them over time when we see that we need more, versus just embedding it and then having to live with a lot of fields that don't make sense in our context.
Yeah, thank you, Stefan. I tend to agree with you, especially if now that we know there's all these extra fields that come with like the node info or whatever. And just for everyone, who's kind of listening here, this is our scale from 0 enhancement. And, currently this is an infrastructure template, and providers are free to add this capacity block that helps inform the cluster autoscaler how to scale from 0. And what Alessandro is proposing is adding this node info so that we can start to pass information about the architecture and the operating system. And then, these annotations that can be applied to a machine set or a machine deployment, or theoretically to a machine pool as well. These allow a user to override the status blocks from the template. So if a provider either didn't provide these, or you wanted to override some value, that can be used that way. So that's generally what we're talking about here. And I think I think the suggestions that are being made are great. So, yeah, happy to see anyone kind of reviewing this or taking a look at it. Perhaps another, not as quite as long a read as the in-place updates, but a little something to look at. Yeah, Fabrizio, please, you got your hand up.
Just a comment. So recently, a few months ago, I refactored all the documentation about the provider contract. And if I'm not wrong, I forgot about to document about the contract for autoscale to 0. So yeah, probably we should open an issue to document what is the current contract and to evolve with this current PR. But yeah, it will be great also for reasonings about the change.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Fabrizio. And if you end up opening it, like feel free to ping me on the issue. I'd be happy to follow up and make sure that we take care of that.
Okay, I will open the issue. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you. All right, great. Thank you, Alessandro, for the update there. So back to our regular agenda. Let's get into our discussion topics. So Christian, you got the first one. It's a week before KubeCon, right?
Yeah, as most of us maybe know, next week is KubeCon. On Monday, there's the Maintainer Summit, which needs a extra registration if you want to go there. And we have a project meeting session there, where we usually freely discuss some topics with folks who are able to attend. Yeah, we will open another agenda item for that today, tomorrow, whatever. Feel free to add topics, join, and discuss there. Happy to meet there. Yeah, and happy to say hi to everyone. And maybe I directly take over to the next one because it's kind of related. Yeah, next week is KubeCon, so should we cancel the meeting for next week? That's the usual question we often have when KubeCon is.
I mean, it seems prudent to cancel next week's meeting as many of us will be there, or at least be out. Are there any objections to canceling next week's meeting? Does anyone really want to have a meeting next week? Okay, going once, going twice. All right, no meeting next week.
Yeah, just to add at the end, some of us are around. Feel free to say hi. There's also a SIG lunch or something like that. I don't know how it's called. I'm sure some of us will also be there, or be just around the venue and talk. So, yeah, happy to meet everyone who's able to. Yeah, it's called SIG Meet and Greet on Thursday.
Yeah, I
Thanks,
was gonna say, are
Stefan.
you talking about the meet and greet? Yeah. So several of us will be around for the meet and greet, although not necessarily at the cluster API table. I think I'll be there for SIG Cloud Provider, but I'll try to stand near the cluster API people. And I think something to point out here too that Stefan mentioned in chat is that registration for Maintainer Summit we think might be open until tomorrow or maybe midnight tonight. So if you haven't registered and you're going to be there, make sure to check that out. Okay. Anything else on that, Christian?
That should be it. Thanks.
All right, cool. Thank you very much. So moving on, I don't know if someone wanted to talk to this, but we've got the 1.10 beta out for Cluster API. This is quite exciting. Was there anybody who, I don't know who put this on the agenda. Does anyone want to speak to this?
I put it on, Mike,
Oh,
because
cool.
helped do the release, but I don't have as much insight into the actual Delta as probably some of you did who wrote the PRs, so I wasn't, but you can see what's in here. If you scroll down to the next section, changes since the previous beta, that's what has changed since the previous beta. But most likely, people haven't had time to incorporate either of the betas. So if you scroll farther down, there's an expandable section that tells you everything that's changed.
I can say a little bit about the Delta if you want.
Yes, please do.
So we actually bumped to beta 0 and already bumped to beta 1 as well. So I mean, the reason for the delta is usually the stuff that we notice in the beta 0. So we had time to bump to beta 0. We found some issues there and we fixed some issues there. I think most of them won't really like affect anyone. So there were a bunch of test fixes, a bunch of cap D and that sort of stuff. So yeah, I would say take a look. Feel free to ping me or whoever did those PRs if you're interested about Delta or about any other sort of changes here. But yeah, mostly just a bunch of bug fixes between beta 0 and 1. Definitely also interested in general about feedback of folks starting to use 1.10. We are on our side basically we're testing it in CAPI, and we're also working on it downstream essentially to get some quick feedback.
Yeah, sounds
we're-
great. And very exciting to see 1.10 rolling out the
Yeah.
door soon.
And as you can tell from the change log, this will be a breaking, it's not just a drop-in change. So I would encourage all of us to get out ahead of it and try and integrate it as soon as possible. Find the bugs.
Okay, yeah, that is great to know. We'll make a note here.
Just because controller runtime and other things got bumped as usual, there will be some breaking changes.
Right. But I know how it goes when you're trying to get that update in and it's like, what, why isn't anything working?
Yeah, don't wait till the last minute like we always do in CapZ, and then you'll be trying to catch up.
Right. I like Stefan's comment. There are no bugs. Yeah. That's our new motto around here. Fabrizio, please, you got your hand in.
Yeah, maybe worth to clarify. Basically, we are importing some dependencies that has some breaking changes that will impact folks that import cluster API. We do not expect breaking changes in cluster API itself, but if you import, you have to fix up some code.
Okay, good to know, but I think we've all had those dependency breaking, updates that are an unwelcome surprise at the last minute. All right, cool. Thank you. Matt, do you want to continue on here with your call to join the 1.11 release team?
Yes, that's pretty much self-explanatory, and hopefully people are motivated. We're looking for people to do it right now and sign up, and we want to get it all squared away. Probably not before KubeCon, but by the time we're back from KubeCon, it would be great to have the team assembled. It's going to be a big release because V1 Beta 2, so you can have a big impact by helping to get the release done. And generally speaking, since I did this for the first time, I would say it's not a huge amount of time. It's kind of a well-oiled machine. The instructions are really clear. If you're able to just devote a few hours a week to any of these roles, you can do a good job and everyone will love you. So please join us. I'll put some stuff in Slack as well. The description of the roles to perform is in that link. And please just reach out to me or anyone in the Slack channel. There's also the Cluster API release channel. And just let us know if you're at all interested. There's a variety of things to do. We would love your help.
Here. We love our release team, and they have been excellent in the past, and we continue to support them going forward. So yeah, if you're watching this live or on a recording, and you're interested in being involved in releasing a relatively large open source project, please reach out. We're happy to get newcomers involved. We love to help people skill up and everything. So yeah, please reach out. All right. So move on to the next topic. Fabrizio, you got some V1 Beta 2 work updates. Please take it away.
Okie dokie. First of all, I echo Matt's invite to everyone. It is really important. It is fun. It is always amazing to see how every release a new set of folks start and become very effective in a small time, and they work really great. So let me jump to V1 Beta 2 work. So as you all know, we opened the main branch for the V1 Beta 2 work, and we are starting doing it. So I would like to start about the first PR that merged, which is basically a PR that introduced this concept of compatible contract in Cluster API. So first of all, what is the contract or the contract version? So in Cluster API, side by side with the API version, we have an API contract version. That means the contract version is basically a set of rules that providers are expected to implement in order to interact with Cluster API. It is how we figure it out if an infra machine is ready, if a control plane provider has initialized the control plane, stuff like that. Okay, so with V1 Beta 2, we are going to change some of those rules in the contract. So that means that some changes are expected also from provider. But unlike what we did in the past, this time we decided to not require provider to make those changes in sync with Cluster API V1 Beta 2. So we decided to give them some more time to do the changes, which is good and probably also something that we have to do considering the number of providers that is out there nowadays. And so in order to make it possible, we introduced this concept of compatible provider. So that means that when we are going to release Cluster API with V1 Beta 2, with the V1 Beta 2 contract, Cluster API will be compatible with V1 Beta 1. So that means that you can create a cluster with copy V1.11, so V1 Beta 2, and keep using Kappa, Kappa V, or any provider out there without V1 Beta 2 changes. It is implemented, the cluster cattle part. We still have to fix up some small part, but it is already working now because we what is important that I want to highlight is that this is a temporary support for V1 Beta 1 contract. So that means that according with the current plane, we are going to drop compatibility with V1 Beta 1 in 1 year, more or less from now, August 26, more than 1 year from now. So again, call for action. If you are developing a provider, we are giving you some time more to migrate to the new contract, but there is a deadline. So please start looking into your plan for implementing support for the next API contract.
Okay. Did you want me to look at the proposal here or anything, or did you cover up that? I guess we did look at that one.
Yeah, we look at I'm bringing it up every now and then. So, but yeah, at the end of the proposal, there is a paragraph which is changes to the cluster API contract, and also I don't remember if it is up or down, but yeah. Yeah, here it is. Changes to the cluster API contract. This is the paragraph that we're talking about. And not only if in the book, in the new documentation of the contract, there is a reminder. Hey guys, this point is going to change in the next in V1 Beta 2 version. So you can find this info not only in this proposal but also in the book, in the contract documentation. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out.
Yes, I have a question looking at this now, and it's only because I was just looking at this code in the cluster autoscaler. But so you know what? I need to read this, and I'll probably bug you about it next week, Fabrizio, assuming you're going to be there. But like we're changing the way the conditions are detected for failed machines, I'm guessing.
We are entirely dropping the concept of terminal failure
Okay.
because it was confusing. If I saw it right, also today there is a thread in the Capi channel about someone that set failure reason and failure message, and now is surprised by the fact that he cannot remove them.
Hmm.
And so the idea is that, okay, this is really confusing. We never made a good job in explaining it, and yeah, it is just why we need fair. You have a provider a condition, you can surface whatever you want, and if your provider just have a condition that goes to false and always remain false, this is a terminal failure.
Right. I guess like is there going to be a way for the cluster autoscaler to generically detect when a machine is in a failure state?
That's an interesting point. What do you assume? So,
Because right now we assume failure. We assume if failure message is there, it's in a failed state. And I was just updating the logic to like detect, where there's a condition going on in the cluster autoscaler right now with around failed machines and whatnot. We've been trying to improve it.
no, that's a good question. So one of the part of this proposal was to try to clarify what is ready, what is available, etc., etc. So I think that the first thing that come to my mind is a machine is failed when the machine check label this machine as failed. This is, I think, the most flexible solution because allows everyone to have their own definition of machine failed.
Vince, please, you got your hand up.
Yeah, so I agree with Fabrizio's like actually those the problem that we noticed like internally that like when we said failure then failure message, we were creating machines almost in a for loop, right? It's like because you just delete and recreate, delete and recreate because so I had some thoughts in mind, but probably that I need to find time and put them in an issue on how to improve machine health check in a way that you can say, hey, if these conditions are on a machine or infrastructure machine are set. This is terminal, so delete, remedy it right away or something like that, right? It's like that is the big like idea that I had in my mind. That I think that's what you were saying, Mike. I guess I was wondering if you had more than that, because we have none of that today. It's just like, well, we watch the nodes, it's like.
Right. Well, so I guess it's only half past. I think we got a little more time here. So yeah, like as I've been looking at a condition in the autoscaler where we've had there's been an inaccuracy in counting, and sometimes the core autoscaler wants to try and adjust like the node group size because like nodes, a full number of nodes haven't gotten there or something like that. And what I've been realizing is that we've been allowing machines in like failed state or deleting state or pending state to get included improperly in this counts, and it's causing the autoscaler to not be able to properly adjust. And for anyone who might have seen this, and I think Vince, you and I might have talked about this maybe like a year ago, there are these error messages where it said like failed to decrease target size or something like that. And this is the autoscaler. When that happens, the autoscaler will actually like drop out of the scaling loop that it's in, and it will basically ignore all the other node groups. And so you can get into these kind of pathological situations where if by whatever list gets returned from the API server, if one of the early node groups, meaning a machine deployment, machine set, or machine pool, goes into a failure state or is not able to properly adjust its node size or its target size, it causes the autoscaler not to do any scaling on the other machine sets or machine deployments. And so I've been tightening that logic up. And one of the things I've been encountering is that, yeah, like the way we detect failed machines on the cluster autoscaler right now is we look for the failure message in the status. And so I think to what you were saying, Vince, like, yeah, it would be nice if there was a generic way to detect is a machine in some sort of failure state. Otherwise, like what's going to happen in the cluster autoscaler is it's basically just going to time out after 15 minutes of saying this machine never became a node, so I'm going to consider it now, to have failed or something. So being able to detect that earlier in the loop is actually helpful for the autoscaler. So yeah. And I guess we'll have to support, when V1 beta 2 comes out, I guess we'll have to be really, really careful about how we update the cluster autoscaler because we'll need to support, either we need to come up with a way to support both, or we'll have to support the old way while we transition to the new way or something. But I guess it's just something to keep in mind. Okay, did anyone else have questions or comments about this? And I'm gonna put this in this link in the notes too, because I'm gonna have to go back and do some reading myself. All right, I'm not seeing any other hands going up. So I think we will move on to the next topic, unless you had something you wanted to wrap up with, Fabrizio.
I think I'm good. Feel free to reach out if you want to discuss this idea of healthiness or readiness. I think
Yeah.
that's a good one.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Otherwise, we will see in London, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I'm loading up my reading list for the airplane, so this will help me. This will help me, prepare. So thanks. Okay, so we'll move on to Danielle, talking about the. I don't know what this. I can never remember what the what the acronym is here. Cluster API add-on provider fleet. So Danielle, please.
Okay, sorry, maybe may have some mic issues, something like yeah. I wanted to ask. I don't know if it's the right place, but since this project is actually in beta phase and it just got released and we have some updates. Try to deploy Helm app, which is available in Philips 012 released because yesterday. And we were able to fully provision Azure cluster class and Calico CNI and CCM using Conchart all together in a single bundle with a source namespace cluster class migration. I think this project may have some use for cluster API community in general. And I wanted to ask if it's possible to link it up to some discussion community 26. I can follow up with some demos and questions. And sorry if I have terrible hours.
Yeah, yeah. Your mic is bad. Is pretty bad there, Danielle. We need to send you a new one or something. Well, I'll just say that the process for having this adopted by Kubernetes SIGs, I think you're asking the right questions here. The main thing is, is this something that this group would want to sponsor? Because I have a feeling that, when you take this to, when you propose, when you propose donating a repository to Kubernetes SIGs, you need to have a SIG that's going to sponsor you. And so I'm guessing in this case, it would be SIG cluster lifecycle. So, asking here is good. I think also going to the SIG cluster lifecycle meeting and putting this on their agenda to ask, if they might have any, questions or requirements is also a good step to take here. I get, the real question will be like, kind of how, is this something that the SIG wants to host? And then what kind of, what kind of future contribution and maintenance do you expect, going forward on this? So, yeah, I would say those are probably the next steps in my book. Does anybody else have thoughts they wanted to share about this? Yeah, Fabrizio, please.
Yeah, I think that I read recently the documentation about donating project to the seed, and there was a phrase that stuck to my mind that was basically that is something around the fact that SIG is not an hosting provider. When the SIG take a project in, is adopting the project, so it is embracing it. And I think that the key question to be answered is why this project is not only is relevant of the community, but is there a community behind this project? Because if it is now it is a rancher sub project, I don't know if it has maintainers from other, and I don't know if there is from other company or if there is interest from maintainers from other companies. So I think that that there should be not only a story behind the project itself, why is it relevant in the SIG contest, but also a story about the type of the community that we want for this project. But yeah, maybe Vince, which is a SIG lead, has a better take on me than this.
Really, really great questions there, Fabrizio. And I think so, Daniil, like I think these are the kind of things that you should think about, as you're getting ready to kind of take the next steps or think about taking the next steps. Is this helpful for you, Daniil?
Yeah, those are good questions. I'll try to answer sometime in the written form and probably there are some nutritional weight data for this project. I think there is a community around this and potentially in the future, and there could be interest as alternatives. Many things proposed and used across the board, which are very capable on their own. So, I mean, I personally find this really entertaining to work on that. But I'll try to get a word around if there are people who are also interested in looking into this project, etc. Those are good questions. I'll try to answer it later.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
would recommend doing some of that work now. If you can gather other people to the community, if you can start to do some outreach to understand like, where your community is and everything and bring it together, I would definitely start doing some of that now. And, like I see Chris in the chat here is, saying like being relevant to only one company, would eliminate all the CAPI providers though. And I think that's a good question that needs to, think about. And then, like on the other hand, we got Andrea here saying, a very enthusiastic
Can I
CAP user. Yeah,
can I comment a bit
please.
because I think that Chris is a fair comment, but if I'm being honest, so it does not apply to all the providers. So we have many providers that are used or have contributors from many companies. I think I know very well Cluster API vSphere, and it is used by Red Hat and have a lot of contribution from the Red Hat folks. But it is also true, and I admit this, that in the past we were pretty light in deciding to host providers. But now I think that not only as a group we sort of become a little bit more mature, but also there are other stuff to consider like CNCF now, so test infra as issue for spending and stuff like that. So I think that we have to, to think carefully. It's not a no, but we have to think a little bit more carefully than before.
Yeah, I think that's the main point is just kind of collecting all this information so that we can make an informed decision and everything. So, I'm happy to hear the discussion. I'm happy to see the project, and I think, I can totally empathize with Daniil that it's, kind of fun to work on some of these things and whatnot. But yeah, doing the legwork for the next part is, I think that's sometimes the tough part. And I can say that as someone who brought a project in that's that is we're having trouble getting the community off the ground and getting that spark going. So yeah, it can be difficult sometimes. All right. Any other comments or questions about that topic before we move on? Okay. I'm not seeing any hands going up, so we'll go into the provider updates. Matt said that he had to drop, so I'll read out the CAPZ update here. Looks like 1.19 is available, including a CAPI 1.9.5 updates. And there's a link here so you can check out kind of what they've changed. Looks like a bug patch will be coming shortly if you're a CAPZ user. Keep your eyes out for that. There are also some patch releases out for the 1.18 and 1.17 series if those are something that you're interested in. So CAPV, who do we hand it off here to? Who wants to talk about CAPV?
Oh, that was just like, there's not much more than what I wrote there.
Okay, cool. Well,
yeah, but yeah, we released the CAPI release last week based on the CAPI release from last week, and I'm currently releasing beta 1 based on the release from yesterday. So if you're using that stuff, feel free to try it.
Awesome. Always good to hear your voice again, Stefan. All right, cool. Nolan, you're up next with some Kappa releases.
Yeah, so last week and this Monday, we've gotten a v2.8.1 out that we skipped 2.8.0. There were some complications with the release jobs. We also put out a 2.8.2 fix with a CVE. And on Monday, we did a v2.7.2. So thanks everyone for working on all the blockers to these releases. I know there were a lot of them, and really appreciate people's help in getting CI green. It looks much better now. Notably for v2.8, we were running into issues with classic ELBs. So bringing awareness that if you're using Kappa, this release switches over the default from a classic ELB to a network ELB, and you can find more details about that in the release notes. Also, I made an issue to track the v1 beta 2 APIs request. Thanks, Fabrizio, for bringing that up. And also, we are still looking for maintainers. There's a few of us active, but more reviewers would always help.
Awesome. Thank you, Nolan. Looks like a lot of stuff got packed in there. Cool. All right. And then CapG, Richard, please.
Yeah, just a very quick one. As you can see there, 1.9.0 was released with CAPI 1.9 support in it. Also, a notable thing is got 2 new maintainers joining CapG in Damiano and Carlos. So hopefully we'll be able to get more changes through quicker for CapG. So it's all good, but yeah, short and sweet.
Awesome. Love to hear new maintainers joining. It's hopefully we'll get more and more of those messages as the weeks go on here. All righty. So I guess that brings us to the end of our agenda today. I'll give one last chance in case anyone has an ad hoc topic or question they wanted to ask before we go here. So anyone? Going once? Going twice? Okay, remember, no meeting next week. See some of you at KubeCon, and safe travels to everyone. Thank you.